5, 4,
Let me get out of the
3,
way.
2, 1. Da da da, ya da da, ya
This is the
da
first.
da.
This is the first time we've had a singing introduction. So, Tommy, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you and welcome you to this little thing that we call Craic and the Bat. It's for the Irish American Baseball Society, and even though you're Welsh, we will not hold that against you. So, listen, how are you doing? How's the health?
It's getting better. You know, I had COVID, and Cheryl and I both had COVID. We got it in December, early December, recovered from it, and then I fell out of bed, hit my head on the table on the nightstand. Now I'm back in the hospital. I come home. 2 days later, I fall. I crack my head again. I'm in the hospital. I come back home. I was in the hospital 5 times.
Wow.
And I went to out here in Palm Springs. Probably the best hospital is Eisenhower. And they basically sent me home to die.
Wow.
How bad is that?
Jesus. You're not doing a very good job of dying, if you don't mind me saying. You're looking pretty well.
I just have a good wife that takes care of me.
Someone said to me one time, they said, well, where were you when Aaron Boone hit that home run to beat the Red Sox in 2003? And I always tell them, I was standing next to Tommy John. You had stopped by Foley's with our good friend Kevin Brosnan, who's no longer with us. And Kevin, in Kevin's fashion, had decided to leave the Yankee game early. And I remember we were the only people there. Foley, I had literally only been in Foley's about 3 weeks. And I remember you turned to me and you said, this is the last time that you'll watch a Yankee playoff game in Foley's, and there'll only be 4 people. You were very right about that, you know. But so come here. You're the first time I've ever spoken to a Sagamore of the Wabash.
How about that?
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. I was like, I was doing a lot of research and looking up to see what I didn't already know about Tommy John, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I was looking at that list. It's quite a, you know, you're there with David Letterman, Adam Vinatieri,
yeah,
Jeff Gordon, some pretty, you know. So I mean, that's pretty cool. So you grew up in Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana.
Yep.
You had and you had the opportunity to play basketball. You for Kentucky. It wasn't your first love?
No, I basketball. I was just going to let whatever filtered out. And we had a couple of twins that I played high school ball against, named Tom and Dick Van Arsdale. And Adolph Rupp, the Kentucky coach, was recruiting them, and he was on their tail like you were for $100 bill. And I mean, he was salivating, and they ended up signing and going to Indiana. Well, now Rupp is in Indiana, and his second choice was moi. So he comes over to the house and talking to my dad, and you know, my dad says, well, coach, I don't, you know, we're getting a lot of looks in baseball. I don't know what's going to happen, you know. Now, this tells you how smart Adolph Rupp was. He goes, baseball? We've got an outstanding baseball program at Kentucky. Your son might not even be able to make our team. Well, you're telling a father this, who you're trying to impress, to go to Kentucky to play basketball? And my dad got up and he said, Coach Rupp, I've never liked you. When Howard Dardine, which was a basketball player from my high school, he told me all the things that you used to do, kicking players in the butt, actually punting them in the butt. He was so mad at him. He said, I don't know if I want my son to even go to Kentucky. And Rupp said something else, and my dad said, Coach, you see that door? Don't let it hit you on the butt on the way out. And Rupp got out, stormed out of our house, and I never heard from Kentucky again.
You know what? It was good for you, and it was definitely good for baseball. You know, I mean.
Well, you know, I had one baseball scholarship offer in college. One. I had 50 basketball scholarship offers. So that tells you either how bad basketball was back then or how good I was at basketball. But the baseball scholarship was from University of Illinois. And the coach there said, you know, for you, Mr. John, to send Tom to Illinois for 4 years will cost about $20,000 total. So if some ball club offers you significantly more money than $20,000, you've got to take it. And I looked and I just said, here was a college sports coach, a baseball coach, that told my dad the truth.
Yeah.
Not what he wanted to sell or all this, but the truth. And I said, I told my dad, I said, Pop, if I go to college, play baseball, I want to go to Illinois because I like the man. He was, he said, we've got a chance to win this. Next year, you'll be a sophomore, and we've got a freshman coming in. His name's Holtzman, Ken Holtzman. And he said, I think the two left-handers will be very, very good and will help us win the Big Ten. And the next time I saw Holtzman was on the field, and when he was with the Cubs, and then he went out to Oakland and the Cubs, or however it was. But I told him that, and he laughed, and he said, yeah, I would have gone to Illinois. I said, me too. He said, God, we would have been a good duo, wouldn't we? Well, I don't know. I thought I could pitch. But I tell you, it was the best thing that happened to me was Adolph Rupp telling me that I might not be able to make the Kentucky baseball team, and the baseball coach at Illinois telling me that he would like to have me there. And if the offer is significantly more than $20,000, take it and run. Well, Cleveland offered me $40,000, and I took it and run. My agent back then, God, I should have fired his butt. It was my dad, by the way.
I was going to say, I was looking up. I mean, agents weren't that common back then. You
know? When he told Gabe Paul, he says, well, if you give us 40, we didn't even get $1,000 out. Gabe was over the desk, had his hand out, and he said, deal. And my dad said, I knew right then I'd sold you short.
Well, I mean, yeah, because let's put it this way. If there was one thing Gabe Paul was not known for, it definitely wasn't known for giving away money. That's for sure.
Well, that's right.
I was looking up, you know, I mean, I was looking up the numbers. I mean, I knew the 288 and the 231, you know, but I mean, then I started to look at some of the other ones. Like, I mean, this is the thing. You're 26th in wins, 20th in innings pitched, 10th in hits allowed, 16th in ERA, 8th in games started, 21st in strikeouts, 18th in batters faced. I mean, they're unbelievable. And here's the thing. Here's the number that just jumps out at me. 188 no decisions.
That's the one. I didn't know that. Somebody told that to me about a year ago. And I went, what? And I looked and oh my God, 188 no decisions. And for me to get in the Hall of Fame would just take 12 more wins.
Yeah.
I could find 12 in those 188 someplace, I think.
But that, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, look, there's three guys that, you know, who have always been, you know, categorized as being, to me, they're Hall of Famers. You, Bert Blyleven, who is in, and Jim Cott, you know, and, you know, I mean, I think Kitty has one less win than you, or maybe two less wins than you. And
he has four less wins. One less year. He has 25 years. I have 26. I tell you, I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled if I would be voted into the Hall of Fame along with Jim Cott. Jim is one of the really, really good guys in the game of baseball.
But I'm going to ask you, I think I know the answer, but because I asked Jim, we did a book signing. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame human being, never mind just baseball player. And I said to him, I said, you know, as your career was coming to an end, I mean, did you think about, you know, hanging on for a little bit longer just to get to that 300 wins? And he said, no, he said, you know, I mean, because, you know, in relief or whatever it could have been, you know. And then I read somewhere that someone asked you the same question, and you said it was, you know what, that you had made a lifetime commitment to the family, and it was time to, you know, to honor that commitment, you know, and leave baseball. But I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, you have all of those stats, and then I found one. I don't understand all these new fangled, you know, things that they use. But here's one that works. So they have, you know, they have wins above replacement, right? WAR.
Right.
You have the 21st best WAR in the history of baseball. So basically the new stats, like the weird thing is, like some of these new stats, they you know, like they'll say, oh well, you know, according to the new stats, you know, Joe DiMaggio wasn't that good of a player. I'm like, yeah, you obviously didn't see him play, or you obviously haven't looked at his numbers. I mean, there's a guy who struck out 4 times in a year, you know. So I mean, I gotta tell you, until I'm blue in the face, and every time I get an opportunity, I mean, I just, you know, you're a Hall of Famer. You belong in the Hall of Fame, you know. And I look for I long for the day that baseball basically comes to a senses and say, look, you know, I mean, no disrespect to the guys that are in there, but I mean, truthfully, some of the guys that are in there who got to 300 wins, the only reason they're in the Hall of Fame was they were able to stay healthy, you know.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
You know,
I agree with you 1,000%, and thank you for saying that.
You're very welcome. But now listen, let's get back to the health. Now you've already discussed that, you know, your recent falls and stuff like that. I was looking up, you had the most bizarre injuries. I mean, 1967, you missed a half of the season with a gastrointestinal malady that cost you 28 pounds. And that's wild. 1968, you got into a fight with Dick McAuliffe, you know, like. Now listen, someone needs to have a chat with Dick, because he did an interview 3 or 4 years ago and still maintains that you threw at him. It was a 3-2 pitch. I mean, why in the world?
It was a 3-2. I'm not throwing at anybody 3-2. Come on.
Precisely. Then I looked 1972, you get hurt running the bases. I think you cracked a shoulder or something.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously 1974 you have, you know, the you know, Tommy John. And the funny thing is, I remember someone saying, I remember when you came to bartend for me at Foley's, and someone said to me, Tommy, why didn't you trademark that? Why isn't it, you know, why didn't you trademark the Tommy? And you said to the guy, I thought it was hilarious. You said, if I had tried to trademark the Tommy John surgery, it would have become the Frank Job surgery very quickly.
Well, I thought so much of Dr. Job that if I tried to trademark it, it would be taking away from him.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do anything to take away from Dr. Frank Job. He was a great surgeon, granted, but he was one of my best friends. He was a buddy.
So,
and
I mean, so let's just go back. So you hurt your elbow in 74. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you know, your career is over. You know, I mean,
right.
You know. And so did Job come to you and say, listen, we could try this? You know, how did that, I mean, was there, I mean, obviously, you know.
He was the Dodger orthopedic surgeon. When I hurt my elbow, I come off the field And I tell our trainer, Bill Bueller, I said, Billy, get Dr. Job. He said, I've signaled him. He's on his way down. So we go in and Job is there, the press is there, everybody's mingling around. And Job said, look, come out to my office tomorrow at 2 o'clock and let's talk about this. Okay. And I knew why he did it, because he didn't want to say anything with all these people around and they may run with it, you know?
Right.
So we go out and he sent me down to a hand surgeon. And the hand surgeon's name was Dr. Herbert Stark. And he was from Tennessee and he examined me. Now, there were no MRIs back in 1974. They held my arm up like this and pulled it open. Oh, God, did that hurt. So Stark goes, boy, you sure done it. Yep, you done it. He said, if we can operate on this and you come back and you can throw the ball within 2 to 3 years from the mound to home plate and get it that far, it'll be a success. So Job has not said anything yet about doing any kind of surgery. And he said, well, let's just let it rest, let it heal and see what happens. Okay. So I let it rest for about 3 weeks and then I start throwing. And it feels okay until I get on a mound with the pitched dirt, you know, and then it started to hurt again. Now I went through July, August, and now we're coming up on September. And I start looking at it like this, saying, hey, the longer we wait in September, the longer it's going to be the next year. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I thought 6, 8 weeks, and I'm back pitching again. Well, Dr. Job and I were talking, and I said, what can you do to fix this? And he said, well, I've done some tendon transplants on polio patients that he said I would do on you. But he said, I'll tell you this, it's never been done before. You know, a polio patient is far different than a major league pitcher.
Right.
And I said, okay. But I said, you're my dad. Would you have it done? And he said, yes, I would. And my words to him were, let's do it. I said, I want to pitch. And the only way I'm going to pitch is to have this surgery. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And
what did the Dodgers, did they, like, how did they, were they for it, against it? I mean, technically you were their property.
They wanted me, when I came back after the surgery, our general manager at the time was Al Campanis. And Al was okay. He was full of himself, but he was okay. I pitched in the Arizona Fall League. 7 starts in 28 days. Now that's a start every 4 days.
Right.
You didn't pitch like that. You know, you didn't pitch like that during the season. So I get done and Campanis comes up to me and he said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you down to the Dominican and you pitch for our team down there and see how you do. I said, Al, the next time you see me, we'll be in spring training. Oh, well, you can't do that. Well, I know what he wanted. He wanted me to go down and take the burden off them. Well, if you go to the 1976 season, you will see that it starts with the owners locking us out of spring training.
Right.
So I get 3 starts, 3. My first start, I went 3 innings. The second start, I went 5 innings. The third start, I went 7 innings. And I pitched pretty daggone good, I thought. Well, after my second start, I pitched 5 innings against Houston in Vero Beach, and I'm walking to the clubhouse. Dixie Walker bounces out of the stands, and he said, "Buddy, you better get that fastball up there a little faster." I said, "What? You better get that fastball up there a little faster." A little faster than what? "Well, you only be throwing it about 87, 88 mile an hour." I said, "And what?" "Well, Campanis wants you in the mid-90s. And I said, "You go tell that Italian SOB, if he can tell me what I threw before I hurt my elbow, I'll throw it my next start." And Dixie goes, "Damned if we know." And I said, "You're absolutely right. You don't know how hard I threw. All you guys went on back then was, did you get batters out?" "Yeah, I got batters out." Well, you know, it's just, and from that time on, I was saddled with, I have a bad game. Oh, is it gone? Is the elbow gone? It is, you know, and it took me half the 76 season to get my confidence that I could get batters out.
So you missed all of 75. Before we go further,
yes.
Before we go further, one of our listeners, Ted Doyle, has added 2 other stats that are every bit as impressive. One is that you hold the record for forcing most ground balls that led to 604 double plays. It's pretty impressive. Oh. And here's an even better one: 162 complete games. 91 of those complete games coming after the surgery, and that's more complete games pitched than 17 current Hall of Fame inducted pitchers. That's pretty impressive. Now, we also have, because obviously we're going out live on Facebook, so there's people. We have a question here from Bobby Score, and Bobby wants to know, what was your favorite season, and what was your favorite team or city to pitch for?
My favorite season was 1978 with the Dodgers. 77. It was Lasorda's first year as manager. And I can tell you this, Lasorda had more BS than any politician. But I would go through hell in a gasoline suit to pitch for him. That's what I thought of Tommy. That was my best season. I love pitching for the Dodgers, but I loved pitching for the Yankees. I love the fans with the Yankees. You pitch bad, "Yeah, John, you suck." Okay, I got it coming. You pitch good, "You're the best, TJ. Way to go, buddy." Yeah. But that I love the Yankees to pitch for them, and I love the Dodgers to play for them as a team, because we had the manager Lasorda. Walter Alston. Walt didn't like me, and I didn't particularly care for him. But and the best game I ever pitched was the 1977 playoffs. I'm pitching against Philadelphia in the rain against Steve Carlton. And I beat him, I think it was 4-1, 5-1, something like that, to go to the World Series. And I went 9 innings. I pitched 9 innings in a pouring down rainstorm in Philadelphia. And, I guess you could say from then on that TJ is back.
Who was the toughest guy for you to face? And that's a question coming from Tim Howard. Tim, thanks for the question.
I had a hard time with Ken Griffey. Now, Ken Griffey Sr., Junior, I could get out. He was not. He was only 12 at the time. But I couldn't get my curveball to get over the plate to Griffey. And I had a hard time with him. The other one that was tough to pitch to was Wade Boggs. And I think Wade's numbers speak for themselves, but Griffey was tough. I could not throw a good pitch to him.
So for a second now, we talked about managers, and I look back, I mean, between managers and pitching coaches, I mean, you had quite a few interesting guys, from Early Wynn to Johnny Sain to Stanky. I mean, there was quite a few. So, but let's compare two of the owners. So, I mean, you played for like two of the kind of, I mean, if you want to say greatest owners in the O'Malleys and George Steinbrenner. Have you a favorite story from either? I mean, I don't expect the ones with the O'Malleys. I mean, Peter's a good friend and Peter's a class act. But have you a favorite George story?
Night and day. The O'Malleys were day and George was night. The O'Malleys, Mr. O'Malley had a saying: contented cows give sweeter milk. And if you think about it, that's what he wanted his players to be, contented. And then he could get more out of them. You know, that was back in the days when you never got fees for going out and speaking or signing autographs. You did it because the O'Malleys asked you to do it. Then when I go to the Yankees as a free agent in 1979, we lose our first two games. We're playing Milwaukee. Guidry loses game one. Ed Figueroa loses game two. And I'm pitching game three, Easter Sunday. I come to the ballpark and I go in at Old Yankee Stadium. You could go in through the manager's office and you would miss everybody out on the main hallway by the players' entrance. So I went, and Steinbrenner's coming out. He pulled me aside. This is the most important game of your life. This is why I got you. This right here. I said, George, this is the third game of the season. If I lose this game and then we win all the other ones, we'll be 159-3. No, that's not the way. You got to win this game. You got to suck it up. But that was George. George had and I ended up beating the Brewers that day. I think I went 6 innings. I think it was 6. And Gossage came in and pitched 7, 8, 9. And we beat him, and I got George off my fanny, but totally night and day, you know, poles apart. O'Malley's, Steinbrenner. But again, I would play for George because you knew what you were getting with George. You pitch good, you got a pat on the back. You didn't pitch good, you got your fanny chewed out.
So we have another question coming in. So would you just talk about what it was like to be you, because you were on the Yankees in 79 when Thurman Munson died?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, you know, you with Thurman being a catcher, you had a relationship, you know.
August 2nd, Thursday. It was an off day. And I was home doing something, I don't know. And I get a phone call. Hello, Tommy, George Steinbrenner. And I said, yeah. And he's crying. He said, Thurman's plane crashed. He's dead. What? So I yelled to my wife. I said, go. We came back Friday. Everybody went on the field. The catcher spot was open. And then we had, what day was it? Saturday or Friday? Friday, Saturday. Because I pitched Sunday. And we flew from Newark to Akron, Canton to go to the funeral. And I tell you what, that was the toughest day I've ever spent at the ballpark, because the guy that you loved, I mean, you know, he was the captain of your team, is gone. He's never going to be back in uniform again. And he was highly, highly, highly intelligent. And I remember during my first year there, spring training, he never caught me. So we go out, and my first game was against the Brewers. And he said, this is when I knew how smart he was. He said, well, you were throwing a lot of curveballs to these guys in spring training. I said, how do you know? You never saw me. He said, what do you think I do? Sit over on the bench and eat ice cream? Well, yeah, you probably did, and he said, so we'll show him the curveball early and then get him with the fastball. And I go, that's pretty good. Okay, let's do it. And that's how I beat the Brewers that first time. And he was a highly intelligent catcher and a good guy. God, he was a good guy.
Yeah, he wouldn't. I don't know how he'd like it today, where all the pitches have been called from the dugout. You know,
I couldn't pitch today. Because I don't want some dumb SOB over there who has no idea what's going through my mind to tell me how to pitch or what to pitch.
Yeah.
I'll determine that at the moment. And, you know, I can't. In fact, I don't even watch baseball, because it's not the same game I played. What they play now is not the same game that I played for 26 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's, you know, it's funny you mentioned Red Foley at the start of this interview, and I've had several conversations with people who knew Red, and I'm like, how in the world could you explain this game to Red? I mean, it's just, I mean, managers coming out with, you know, with one out to go in the fifth and taking guys out of games where, you know, where wins don't count, saves don't count. You know, I mean, it's crazy. But so listen, we're going to wrap this up shortly. But I was just looking at something that I wanted to ask you about. So you come back in '76, and this is comparing with how they bring players back now from Tommy John. You come back, and you know, the Dodgers eased you back into it. You know, you made 31 starts, you threw 207 innings, and you had a 3.09 ERA. I mean, well, of course, it was virgin territory, I guess, because they didn't know. But one thing I wanted to ask that I read, and they said that one guy who was a big help to you was Mike Marshall, because he was big into kinesiology. Was that? Yeah. That helped?
Yeah, I know. People have asked me that. He had nothing to do with my rehabilitation. Nothing.
So that's just he's kind of latched on to the myth that is.
So somebody said he taught you how to pitch again, to repitch. I said, no, he never said anything to me. And if he did, I would listen to him. Okay. And then I would do what my pitching coach, Red Adams, was telling me. And no, I didn't, you know, Mike was good at what he did, but he never talked to me about pitching. And if he did, I would politely listen to him, because he's a teammate. and then I would do my own thing.
Awesome. Tommy, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. It's great to see you looking so well, and it's great to reminisce and catch up. And I hope we can do it again soon.
I would love to.
Anything that I can do so that we can put those 3 letters HOF after your name is, you know, like I said, it's only a matter of time, because like the thing is, like I said, those stats and these guys keep coming up with you know, sorry, I've got another question coming in here.
That's okay.
So just one other question. Brandon O'Connor asks, how many pitchers ended their career because of the same injury back when you played? I mean, that's a lot, right? A lot of guys blew out their elbows.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I mean, do you think, and he also asked, you know, do you think there were as many injuries back then as there are now? I mean, guys played hurt a lot more because, I mean, now there's so much money invested, I guess, but, you know, I mean.
Well, that's the thing nowadays. They have so much invested in you that, you know, if you get a hangnail, like I got to cut my fingernails, but if you get a hangnail and, we got to sit him down and ice his arm down I mean, it's so much different. And the Dodgers looked after me after I came back. They didn't abuse me. I pitched when it was my turn. And, you know, in fact, when Lasorda came back in 77, 78, I pitched 9 innings. And the next day I was in the bullpen warming up to go in the ball game, because Tommy went through the entire bullpen. And I was there as the only guy left. And I said, yeah, I can give you a couple innings, because I was going to throw anyway today. And, but, you know, it was fun. And I'm glad my agent signed with Cleveland. Early Wynn was not a good pitching coach. He was a good pitcher, but a pitching coach he wasn't.
Yeah.
And, but I had a good time. If somebody said, Tommy, would you do it over again? You better believe I would, in a heartbeat.
Would you believe that a rough estimate of how many pitchers who have had Tommy John? It's over 500.
Really?
That's 500 careers that have been either resurrected or.
Oh wow! Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
You know, my last kind of statement on the thing was it wasn't so much Tommy John, but it was one of Casey Stengel's pitchers was having surgery, and Stengel asked to see the doctor before he had the surgery, and Stengel says, Doc, I've only got one question for you. He said, is this guy going to be able to play the piano? He said, when he's had this surgery. And the doctor says, Casey, don't you worry. He said, he will be able to play it perfectly. And Casey says, that's good. He says, because he couldn't play it before. So listen, Tommy, be well. I appreciate you doing this. Stay healthy. I hope we can get together soon. And like I said, wherever I end up, I will do everything in my power to scream from the rafters that you belong in Cooperstown. And also, how awesome would it be to see you and Thurman go in together?
Oh, would that be good? Oh my God! Oh,
but the thing is, they got to come to their senses. I want you there, because here's the other thing. I want you to get into Cooperstown for one reason, because I'm going to make a lot of money, because the over on how long your speech is going to be, I'm taking the over.
I'm going to have my son, Dr. Tommy John, introduce me, and I will give one of the shorter speeches of my career.
Tommy, don't do that, Tommy. I mean, that's
how much do you have? What do you got? What's the time limit you do have on me? 20 minutes?
You're listen, I can see you've been up there with some of the longest ones. I can see that. You have a lot of people to thank, you know. I'll never forget the first. I'll never forget, because I mean, obviously your career had kind of come to an end before I got, but I knew all about you, and I remember asking Red Foley. I said, Red, what's Tommy John like? And what kind of a guy is he? And he says, Sean, he says, I'm only going to tell it to you. Tell one thing you got to know about Tommy John. He says, if you ask Tommy John the time, he's going to tell you how to make a watch.
That's right.
So listen, Tommy, you stay well, stay healthy. Thanks, Cheryl, for helping with the technical part of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stay out of that heat, and we'll do this again soon, I promise.
You got it, buddy.
All right,
God
take
bless.
care.
Uh-huh.